Macquarie.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. There were many times in my 25 years in business that I felt like a bank. Small businesses often feel like a bank, a lender to big business. But I have to say, the thing we do wrong is we don't charge interest. And that's the big difference and the price that small business pays depending on the clients that they choose, and I'm going to come to that issue of whether you choose your clients or whether they choose you. Being paid, even by government agencies, within 30 days was an absolute miracle. 60 days, 90 days was something you came to think of as acceptable. Sometimes at this time of year, in June, I'd be chasing payments, hoping to get the money in the door before the end of the financial year. Small business owners are multi-skilled, but often that means you do the things you like least last. So when I did get round to following up on a long overdue invoice, I might be told, oh, it's just missed the processing date. Oh, it's with accounts. All sorts of time-buying excuses. Now, sometimes there was human error, and sometimes the error was mine, but when you're looking in your MYOB or your Xero at what's in your account there versus what's actually in your bank account, at looking at what's owed to you versus the cash you have in the bank, it is absolutely no comfort when the rent is due or the BAS payments or the repayment on your truck or salaries are due. That's the dilemma that you face, and every small business owner understands that cash is king. You can have all the turnover you like, you can have all the revenue in the world, but without that money landing in your bank account, you can't survive, let alone grow. Unlike big business, small business doesn't have a lot of other ways to increase working capital. We don't use the bond market, we can't raise equity. It's really about what is in the bank. So my experience of a quarter of a century as a small business operator is the lens through which I'm looking at this legislation. I look at it with the eyes of the people who operate earth-moving equipment and the consultants, the caterers and the construction framers, all those who, in good faith, spend time tendering for or pitching for work from big business, who deliver that work and then they wait. They don't like to complain, they don't like to be difficult because they want more work from those same businesses. They patiently wait, sometimes to their own financial detriment. So I do support this payment times reporting bill. We will be supporting it as a step in the right direction. But I have to say, I think it's a baby step. I think it's worth understanding exactly what this bill is about. The bill requires around 3,000 large businesses and government enterprises with annual turnovers of $100 million and above to publicly report twice a year on their payment terms and practices for their small business suppliers. And by small business, they're talking about businesses that turn over less than $10 million a year. That's what this legislation is about, not requiring certain payment terms, not enforcing limits on how long businesses can take to pay small business, but asking them to report on what they do. And there are financial penalties if they fail to report. That's why I call it a baby step. It's obviously a good thing to have information and reporting, but without anything else, I question the effectiveness of it as a way of encouraging big companies to do better by small business. The government believes that greater transparency will create pressure for cultural change to improve payment times, and certainly work on a similar reporting framework was begun with Julia Gillard as Prime Minister, and COSBOA's Peter Strong has reminded us of that. And there is some validity to that argument. But the Morrison government also has a view that the information will help small businesses make more informed decisions about their potential clients, help them choose their potential clients. Now, I don't know what world the Liberals live in when they think that small businesses have the power to go out and choose their clients. They claim to be the only people in this place who understand small business, because someone on this side of the House, on the Labor side of the House, could not possibly understand small business, yet many of us have spent decades working as small business owners. They need to revisit that self-belief, because what this legislation shows is a real lack of understanding of small business, and it is an enormous missed opportunity to do something tangible to help small businesses. My small businesses are going to laugh when I say, oh, well, the government's tried to help small business by putting in a reporting mechanism. They're not going to see it as being of any use to them, and I think it's going to be some time before we get to a point where it's actually even going to be a useful piece of data. Most small businesses will tell you that in a lot of cases you don't have the luxury of shopping around for a client. You have to be really well established with a strong pipeline of work and long-term loyal clients to be able to spurn someone on the basis that they may take a long time to pay your invoices, because so many of them take a really long time. Some of the biggest companies or government agencies I've worked for and loved working for have been the worst payers. So the belief that small business can pick and choose clients is the sort of thing that doesn't understand the power imbalance that large businesses have over their smaller suppliers and contractors because of their size and their status. Small Business Ombudsman Kate Carnell echoes this view in saying, the payment times reporting framework is one piece in the puzzle, and it won't solve the problem of late payment on its own. Legislation requiring SMEs to be paid in 30 days is the only way to drive meaningful cultural change in business payment performance across the economy. I agree. In my experience, the best way to get a big company to do the right thing is to make it a rule. I do note that the Business Council of Australia already has a voluntary but unenforceable supplier payment code, which is a non-binding pledge to pay small businesses within 30 days of invoice. I also note the concerns that the BCA has that one of the unintended consequences of this legislation might be to encourage large businesses with best practice payment times of, say, 21 days or less, to extend their payment times to 30 days. I think this is the sort of thing that needs to be considered by a Senate committee, along with the questions about what it means in terms of red tape for large enterprises. I'd agree that with the BCA that a one-size-fits-all policy for every industry may not be the way to go, as it doesn't take into account industry-specific circumstances. I recognise we need a piece of legislation that works for both parties, but this was the chance to start to even the playing field for small business, and that chance, I think, has been lost. We also have the right to ask the question put by the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman about the government's planned resourcing for the scheme, and that it may not be enough. The regulator can be as little as one public servant without support staff. I don't think you can talk about any payment terms for small business without mentioning supply chain financing and reverse factoring. Now, this is where small business essentially pay to have their invoices paid in a timely way. It is not fair to ask small business to pay a fee so they can be paid on time. I'm pleased that the Shadow Small Business Minister, the member for Gorton, has taken action on this with the ACCC, who have confirmed they're reviewing the arrangement of some large firms' use of reverse factoring. Third-party financing must not replace reasonable payment terms being offered by large businesses. As the Ombudsman says, it's not acceptable for large business to use small suppliers to optimise their cash flow. And so I end where I started, with small business being the financiers of large business. I welcome this one small step for transparency, but I'd prefer to see one giant leap for fairness for small business.